Well, we have Robert Lamm with us here, and we're A, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And B, you mentioned just before you walked in that you've been having some time flashes in this building.
Absolutely.
Do you remember the first gig?
No.
In September, or even that first weekend?
No. Actually, I was lucky. I lived with a group of people other than people in the band, a group of kids from Chicago who rented a house right up the hill. So rather than live like a barnyard animal in Hollywood with the rest of the band, I was lucky. I escaped. So whenever we played here, we were lucky enough. Elmer and Mario allowed us to rehearse during the day.
Wow.
So I would just kind of shamble down the hill and do my thing and go back up and eat some food.
What is
smart thing.
It seemed, for me, your band was one of a couple that really were the soundtrack of that era. Your first bunch of records really, not only in terms of like love songs and things, but I think the people may not remember Chicago as a political band.
We were, and guilty of writing some of those songs. Dialogue from the
Dialogue
fifth
1
album.
and 2, yeah.
From the first album, It Better End Soon.
Absolutely.
And really a lot of them were informed by what we were all talking about. We were all watching the war on television, and that I particularly didn't want to write love songs yet. I was just a kid,
right?
And I, had barely lived a life yet. So yeah, that was what informed my writing.
Do you find those songs having an increased resonance now in this climate as you play them? If you're pulling things like Dialogue, which is essentially a dialogue between a political activist and like a college student who's sort of like on the fence and not really part of the turmoil. And it's actually an interesting song because the two voices and the 2 points of view really coalesce into a real interesting dynamic that's also musically quite forceful.
Thank you. And it's a song that we play every night. There were a few years when we let it go. But tonight, I'm not sure if we're going to be running our light show, our films, but we do play that song every night, usually with film clips of exactly what I was singing about and writing about.
Right.
And I can't help but both remember, Watergate, for instance, and think about the new president.
Right.
Were you in Chicago during the Democratic Convention in '68?
We were.
Because you have that recording from the protest, and that I remember buying that record and hearing that and thinking, okay, this is an actual soundtrack to something that I'm only reading about. That was a really interesting addition to that record. It really put it not only in the time and place, but it made that point of view much more available on a record that most people they may not have heard it.
Yeah, I think it was our producer Jimmy Guercio had an in with somebody at CBS News.
So he got the soundbite.
He got the soundbite, and then he manipulated it to make it musical, and I think he time corrected it to put it in tempo with what we were doing.
We're talking with Robert Lamm from Chicago. We are live at the Whisky. The band's going to be hitting the stage in just a bit. You were just talking about new music and new ideas. Considering what we were discussing in terms of your pedigree, and considering the times we now live in, are those kinds of songs, are activist songs, political songs, social commentary songs coming up now at all, or are you just past that?
No, we're not past it. Actually, on our last album, Chicago
36.
Thank you.
That's scary that you don't remember.
It was 30-something.
He was there. That's the important
Well, listen, unfortunately, there's a lot of things I don't remember. But on that album was a song I wrote called Naked in the Garden of Allah.
Yes.
And it pretty much spelled out, what have we been doing? Asking, what have we been doing? Who are we? Who are they?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it continues.
And it's not to be naive, but we believed that music could change the world. Do you believe that still?
Absolutely. Music, because generally generally music that is played and music that is listened to, regardless of what the lyric content may be about, is a communication, and I believe it's a communication of love, and I think love is what will save us in the end.
Hats off to that, my friend. I hope that you are right as far as that goes. So what's going through your mind now as you're about to step on this stage? It's been a while since you've been on this little teeny stage.
Actually, what was it like to see the name Chicago Transit Authority on the marquee? I thought that was a very nice touch.
We kind of blurred, we kind of sped right by it, but I caught it out of the corner of my eye. And I'm glad this is a one-nighter. As lovely as this all is, I'm glad it's a one-nighter.
Why? This is going to be such a great moment.
It's going to be great. Well, mainly because this has always been a great rock-sounding room. I mean, it's a great sounding room. We did our sound check, and it was like, oh yeah, I remember this place.
Yeah.
And I'm actually in the same exact spot I spent many nights in, kind of like in a tunnel behind the sound wedges.
Well, they always had to make room for all the horns. I guess that was a disadvantage for all the keyboards.
At some point during the 80s, the horns just couldn't stand being up on a riser and back anymore.
Yeah.
So they were craving attention, and now they live downstage.
Right. How is it for you guys once you leave here?
Yeah.
You guys are in the midst of a tour.
We are actually starting 2 months with the Doobie Brothers,
which we've done
before.
3 times before. I
This
think
could
3 or
be
4, something like that.
You know, we did one actually with them in the 70s, which I
Yeah.
don't remember at all.
Must have been great.
And I don't think they do. But yeah, we've done a few in recent years. It's always great to see those guys. And, you know, it's a great evening of music for the audience. You know, between their stuff and our stuff, and anything that we might get a chance to do together.
What kind of stuff do you miss from the early days? And by the way, I don't mean to dwell on the early days so much, because I know that you guys have been making music consistently for all these years.
Thank you.
But I mean, this is, anniversaries have a tendency to make us look back. So
yeah, okay.
And that's also a period when the experimenting is really at its full tilt.
True.
And that's what those first, I bought those first 5 and 6 records because they were double albums. There was a lot of experimenting. You had a hit by Varese, Edgard Varese.
You,
that's a
you
great
have
track.
listened to this album.
I have listened to this album.
Yes.
Well, we're talking. Well, we have many things going on with us, but what was your question?
Just wondering about the things that you might miss from back in the day.
Yes.
That,
Well, I
in
do.
terms of the music, in terms of your band working together, and
The era where we started was a real fertile era for experimenting, as you say. There wasn't anything that you couldn't try, and the fact that the record company was up for it and radio was up for it, really kind of encouraged us. So I do miss that aspect of it. I miss. We used to even when we were playing, arenas, we used to make up a different set every night, and now we can't do that. We can't do it because the lights are computerized, and they programmed in a certain order. The click track,
Yeah. You got to go back to analog. You got.
I'm there.
Throw away the safety net.
I played a solo concert a couple of years ago with a put together band, and I just sat at the Rhodes and played with wedges, and it was like freedom that I don't have anymore. But I'm not complaining. We're very lucky to be here today.
Oh,
I think
so
we
are
all
we.
are. We are really looking forward to the show. Robert Lamm, thank you so much for taking some time and stopping by.
Thank you very much.
Hit by from
And
Reds.
congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I love that track.
We've got quite a bit more coming. We are going to take a listen to a song called "Listen." You want to set that up for us?
Yeah, that was. We were feeling bad vibes many times when we started playing our original music in the clubs that were where we had to play. The gestation of the band is, we played clubs. We played some cover songs. We were doing arrangements of cover songs, which people sort of looked sideways at us when we were doing that. But then when we threw in a song that they hadn't heard before. You know, it was like they were saying, what the F are you guys doing?
Yeah.
So Listen was kind of about, talking back to the audience saying, listen, if you think that we're here for the money, probably not.
Robert Lamm here on Classic Vinyl, just minutes before Chicago hits the stage at the Whiskey Live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Cool.
A lot more coming.